Hi, this is Mike Dealey, no longer a golf coach, but still looking for some insights and some simple philosophies to help us all enjoy this great game of golf. Happy 2021. It's been a strange year so far, and currently we're in the middle of lockdown, so no golf for a while. And probably like a lot of golfers, I've been rereading a couple of my favourite golf books, looking for a bit of inspiration ready for the coming season. And I'd like to share some tips that I've gleaned from one of my favourite books, which is Golf is My Game by Bobby Jones. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Bobby Jones, founder of the Masters, and a great player in his own right before that legacy. And probably most famous for in 1930, in his final year of playing competitive golf, he won the British Amateur, the US Amateur, the US Open and the British Open as an amateur, and then retired from the game. So walked away from the game really having beaten it, maybe the only person in history to do that. And you can imagine that situation not happening today, when somebody as an amateur has won those championships and all the companies are lining up with millions of dollars, and he just walked away from the game, decided he wanted to become a lawyer and have a family as well, and decided to do that instead. But as I read through the book, there's some technical thoughts, absolutely, but the thing that struck me was that I didn't realise how much he'd struggled at the game at an early age. Bobby Jones was pretty much at 14 years old. He was a fully formed adult. He had full strength at that age, and the kind of skills that people were already tipping him for stardom, even at 14. And from 14 to 21, he played in all the major tournaments of that time. And in that period of 7 years, he won 0 major championships, and got thoroughly frustrated at a US Open when he was 21, and threw a club out of frustration, hit a woman spectator, and basically the governing body at that time got him in and had a bit of a chat with him and said, if you do that again, you'll probably be banned. So at that point he went home and had a really good think about things. He knew he could play the game, and when he thought about things, what he realised was the kind of golf that he could play when he was hitting on the driving range or in a friendly game of golf, he couldn't bring that to the golf course when it really mattered. He would get in his own way, and I'm sure we can all relate to that. And so what he did over the period of days at home is he wrote 3 thoughts down on a piece of paper that he believed were the missing link to him playing championship winning golf. And over the next 7 years then, he carried that piece of paper around with him whenever he played golf. And over those next 7 years, as I say, he became probably the best player in the world. Now, you probably want to know what's on that piece of paper. And interestingly, there were no technical tips about his golf swing, no thoughts about what bits of my body should do. They were really just thoughts for the mindset of golf, and also about the strategy of how to get round the golf course, how to find the easy way around the golf course. So I've got his piece of paper with the 3 rules on, so I'll run you through them one by one. The first rule that Bobby wrote was, I must be prepared for the making of mistakes. Now, up until that point, he realised that he wasn't prepared for the making of mistakes. So the first mistake, it could be as early as the first hole, as we all know, always used to frustrate him. and that frustration would turn to anger, or that frustration would lead to him tinkering with his golf swing, and then he had a situation where he didn't have the new golf swing and he didn't have the golf swing that he went to the first tee with. He was in no man's land. Again, I'm sure we can all very much relate to that. So I think that's a good point for any golfer. Just being prepared to make mistakes. Every round of golf that you've ever played has been a mixture of some really good shots and some mishits. And every round of golf that you will play this year will be no different. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that appears to be what golf's going to be like for all of us. It is not going to be easy, it's going to be a challenge. And if you don't like that fact, probably now's the time to pick a different game. Find an easier sport. So just the fact that he said to himself it was going to be a challenge, he was going to be able to make some mistakes, meant that he could live with them. Now, how many mistakes can you make? And I always would say when I was coaching that if you were off, say, 18 handicap, then you could probably make 18 good mistakes, or bad mistakes, in a round of golf, because that's why you can knock 18 off at the end. So simply accept the fact that you will have some mishits in a game of golf. Now, that statement says that Bobby Jones could make mistakes and still win British Opens and US Opens making mistakes. Now you think, well, how on earth could he do that? Surely to win an Open or to win a US Open, that's the avoidance of mistakes, or even the elimination of mistakes. So he found a way to win making mistakes. How did he do that? Now that leads us to the second point on this list, which is that he says, I must choose the strategy for every shot to give myself the widest possible margin of error. And the emphasis there is margin of error. So every golf shot that he played in a game of golf, he would either think, do I want to miss the target? Would I like to favour the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Or would I like to be a little bit short of the pin? Or would I like to be a little bit past the pin? And that seems an easy mindset, but most people think of golf that the flag is a bullseye and it's compulsory that you have to aim at the bullseye. And it isn't. They've just completed a really interesting study in America, which they took a group of golfers from all handicaps, so from scratch right up to 54, and they followed them for a month. And one group of golfers just played their normal games, kept track of their scores after the game, and the second group, they played the same 18 holes as well, but before they played, the flagstick was taken out, so that they had no idea where the flagstick was when they were playing up to the green. The only time they really knew was just when they got on the edge of the green. Up until that point, it was just a guessing game. Now, the group of golfers that scored the best over that month were the group that didn't know where the flagstick was. And they scored approximately 2 shots less per round than the group that knew where the flag was. And the reason why is that when you don't know where the flag is, all you do consistently is you aim at the middle of the green. So they were, in a very subtle way, they were playing Bobby Jones's margin of error. And if somebody was to say simply, how do I play margin of error? Well, aim at the middle of the green. That rule applies obviously to your approach shots to the green, but a lot of the time that rule will also apply to things like bunker shots. If you aim at the flag in a bunker, you are always going to be playing over the high part of the bunker. If you aim slightly left or right, probably where the middle of the green is, the bunker will always be much lower on the lip, and it will be much easier to get out of the bunker. So playing every shot with a margin of error. Now that margin can be, as we stated, aiming. Good players intuitively know this. It was interesting that my wife Jenny, she's played for 40 years, 45 years now, and always been a good player in that time. She's currently off scratch, so currently the lowest that she's ever been. So for all you senior golfers out there that feel that your handicap has to go up when you become a senior golfer, it's not compulsory. And the reason why I'm telling you about Jenny is that it was probably 40 years of playing the game before she got her first hole-in-one. And at the golf club we were at the time, word got round during the week that Jenny's had a hole-in-one. So one chap in particular came over to us while we were having a drink one day and said, "Oh, congratulations, you had a hole-in-one." And yes, thanks. And how many's that you've had? And Jenny said, "That's my first hole-in-one." And the chap was saying, "I can't believe that. All the years that you've been playing and the standard that you've played at, why do you think that's the only hole-in-one you've ever had?" And she came up with an answer which I immediately went home and wrote down. She said, "I suppose because I don't aim at the flagstick very much on par threes." She was one handicap at the time, and she doesn't aim at the flagstick very much on par threes. That's an interesting thought. Even with a 7 or 8 iron in her hands off one handicap, she would still aim with a margin of error so that she aimed at the big part of the green. This is not archery. You do not have to follow the bullseye round and fire the arrow at the flagstick all the time. So, rule number 2. I must play every shot with a margin of error in mind. Now here's the final rule. Rule number 3. I must accept having to do some scrambling and not be disappointed if the amount of it is more than normal. Now what Bobby Jones meant by scrambling there was chipping and putting. So having a chip and then one putting after that, or being in a bunker by the green, splashing the bunker shot out and being able to one putt after that. Now that whole statement of having to do some scrambling lives or dies by the fact of, can you scramble? Because if you can't scramble, the very nature of golf is that you will probably only hit the ball wonderfully from tee to green about 6 times in a year. Again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you've probably figured this out yourself. Now, if you cannot chip and putt, you can only score well 6 times in a year. Now, if you can chip and putt, you can score well any time, and when you hit the ball wonderfully, no one else stands a chance. So what that means over the next month, especially before the course is open here, is if you've got 5 or 10 minutes a day, simply doing some putting or some chipping, depending on how long your haul is, just to develop some control on the club head, so that when the golf courses do open, you don't have to hit the ball well to score well. So, those are Bobby's 3 rules. As I say, no technical thoughts whatsoever. Purely a strategy for how to get round the golf course, finding the easy way around, and finding some ways to be kinder to yourself, and hopefully enjoy this lovely but slightly frustrating game of golf. This is Mike Dealing. Enjoy your golf.